Hello everybody, my name is Merwa and I'm part of the Histoire Source story team. I'm also a university student and I'm hoping to teach history one day, so I'm looking forward to the video series and how it can help us think and learn about Canadian history in different ways. So if you haven't already seen it yet, our first video on the Buxton Schoolhouse is out, and in it Shannon and Mariah from the Buxton Museum take us on a virtual tour of the schoolhouse, and they talk about Buxton and the Buxton community, which was a settlement that was established in the mid-19th century. So there's a lot to unpack here, and I think it's really interesting because there's so many themes and insights about Black Canadian history that we can get from just looking at one source. So for instance, when you're thinking about the context in which the schoolhouse was established in, it makes us think about the history that allowed for that to be here. So we kind of have to go back and look at early Black Canadian histories and ask questions like, who was the first Black person to come to Canada? Who were the first Black people here? Thinking about slavery, and not just in the American context that we're normally used to hearing about, but also in the Canadian context, as well as the Underground Railroad or the Separate Schools Act, which allowed for segregation in schooling, and that led to the creation of the schoolhouse. On the other hand, we also get to see the ways Black people were working hard within their communities in order to offer people the best that they could, especially when it came to school. So this opens the door to examine the history of education itself within Black communities and how significant education was in combating racism and empowering Black people, which is a struggle that we still see till today. And it also offers us the opportunity to, think about what other Black communities across Canada look like. I mean, this is just, we're talking about just one community, the Buxton settlement, right? And while we can learn a lot about Black history and Black people in Canada through this one settlement, I think it's also important to consider that, there's so many different experiences that Black people were going through across Canada. So Black Canadians in the West were not necessarily experiencing the same things as Black Canadians in the East, and etc. So while there was a lot of commonalities in their experiences, there's also a lot of diversity. And it starts to make you question what that looked like for other communities, which I think is really interesting. I think one of the most important things that we get from examining these sources is that it helps us dispel a lot of the myths that we hear about Black people and in Canada. And I think one of the most famous ones, at least I heard growing up, is how Canada is this utopia or this haven for Black people who were escaping slavery and the brutality of the United States, when in reality, Black people were experiencing the same things here as well, and life was not much different. And I think the fact that Canada even has this rich and long Black history is something that we're not taught, and it's something that I personally didn't learn until I got to university. This history is so important to bring into the classroom early on because it offers Black students the ability to see themselves within the Canadian landscape. And there's so much research and so many studies out there that tell us the importance of representation, especially within curriculum, especially within our classrooms, in order to create a sense of belonging, in order to create a positive self-identity. And for Black students, that means representations that go beyond seeing Black people as slaves or as victims or as passive, but rather focusing on the activism, the resistance, and the empowerment of Black people, which has been a common fixture in Black communities, but unfortunately not in our textbooks. So after watching the video, I think I was left with a lot of other questions that I kind of started thinking about, like, what did life look like for women within this community, and how did Confederation, which was happening at the same time as this community was coming about, how did that impact the community, if at all? What did other minority communities look like? And I think it's just crazy because there's so much left of Canadian history for us to explore and learn about, and it's really interesting how we were able to get so much information from just looking at one source or one community. So anyways, those are just my thoughts on this video, and just the kind of things that I was reflecting on after watching the video. So we would love to hear your thoughts. So what are some things that you learned, or some things that stayed with you, or what are conversations that you're having about Black Canadian history that you think are worth examining and questioning? So let us know what you guys are thinking, and thank you guys for watching.